Well, good morning, and good morning again to you. Q94.7 Raider Roll on a Wednesday, 8 o'clock hour, brought to you by Cornelius Custom Services. Well, that taxi pulled up, and here's Joe.
Well, I've got my heavy jacket on this morning, Rick. Is it the end of July and it's like 70-something degrees?
I know, 70. I was in another city, I guess. What was it, Monday, I think?
I don't know where you go, Rick.
And it was 77 degrees at 4:30 in the afternoon.
It's nice, isn't it?
That's just craziness.
Polar vortex.
Yeah, it's the polar vortex, which I'll take any other week during this time of year. You know, something that I was going to talk to you about.
Talk to me, Rick.
I need some help with
Or can
this.
I call you Goose?
No. I need some help with, and I think a lot of people probably feel the same way. Like it or not, when we live in a society where, in an area, I guess here, where if we need something like high medical care or whatever, we have to go out of town to get it.
Like specialist type care?
Yeah, different things like that. And when we go to those bigger cities, we get into situations while we're driving where we're not used to these sort of things. And a lot of times, you know, traffic problems, constructions, different things like this going on. Carrying a policy that has the right amount of limits, has uninsured motorists, because the chances are going to a larger city and having an accident with an uninsured motorist is probably going to be a lot greater than it is like in our area.
Well, sure. It's a pure law of numbers thing.
What are the limits? This is my question. What are the limits? I know it's a long way to get this question, but what are the limits that you should carry on your car insurance to keep you out of a lot of trouble?
Couple of areas we're going to look at with that. Like you said, it's the pure law of numbers situation. Just from a population standpoint, the law of averages says the likelihood of getting into an accident in a town such as Graham, in an area that we live in, is lower than you go into, say, Capel, Richardson, stuff like that, those large DFW suburbs and downtown areas. So law of numbers says, yeah, it's going to happen a lot more frequent there. And if you've lived in Graham in this area all your life and you're not used to driving in those situations, that compounds the issue as well. You start getting into traffic situations like on 75 or 35 or something like that. So when it comes to limits, there's two kind of you've got your top limits and your bottom limits. And when I say that, that's how in my head I break it down. Your top limits are if you hit somebody else, how much do you cover bodily injury and property damage to them? And then the uninsured motorist aspect. If somebody hits you that either doesn't have insurance or doesn't have enough, how much coverage do you carry for that? The bottom limits I refer to when I talk full coverage, things like comp, collision, rental car reimbursement, things like that. We're not going to worry about that today. We're going to look at your top limits. People ask that question all the time. Well, that's usually the first question that I ask when somebody comes in and says, hey, let's look at my policy, or hey, I need to get a quote on some insurance. Okay, what kind of limits do you want? And I usually ask that question to kind of gauge how informed the consumer is. A lot of times we get an answer of, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure what I have. And you know what? There's a lot of things in life that people just don't know, that they've got a policy, they don't know what their limits are. And that's fine. It's our job as agents to make sure that the consumer is informed, that we review the policy with the consumer to make sure they know what the heck they have. And so when you're talking with the top limits of if you hit somebody else, state minimum coverage, bare bones, have to have it, state minimum coverage, $30,000 per person, up to $60,000 for all the people in the accident total, okay? $25,000 property damage. So if I hit you and your vehicle is damaged, state says I have to carry up to $25,000. That is the bare bones minimum. Strangely enough, the price difference between the bare bones minimum and, say, some really good coverage like $250,000 per person, $500,000 per accident. I think I carry $500,000 per accident up to $1 million. The cost difference between those two is not that much. And it alleviates you getting into a situation where, gosh forbid, you hit somebody and it's not just Bob in his 1988 old Ford pickup truck that's built like a Sherman tank that you just had a fender bender with. It's Mary and her 4 kids that is in a little Honda and you plowed into them and really wrecked the car and then maybe really hurt some people. So you want to make sure you have coverage enough to cover their damages so that it doesn't come back to you. So the insurance company says, listen, I've reached our limits. The rest of the liability, the rest of the property damage coverage, that comes out of your pocket. So you want to make sure you have enough coverage to take care of that. And again, a lot of people say, oh, I live in Graham. I'm never going to have to worry about that. I don't ever go to the city or whatever. Guys, it can happen here too. Bailey's, Davidson Motor Company, those folks sell some very nice brand new cars. And they're not hurting for business, so they're always selling cars. They're selling some nice, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 vehicles out there. They call it an accident for a reason. You don't get a chance to decide who you're going to hit. So keeping good coverages is really important. Now, the other side of the fence with that is the uninsured motorist aspect. Even though the state requires that you have insurance, a lot of folks don't. And they basically thread the needle with having to deal with that situation of, hey, if I get pulled over, I'm going to get a ticket for non-insurance, but I'm going to roll the dice there on that. And you're really gambling with that because me as a driver, I'm driving down the road. I have no idea out there who has it, who doesn't. If I get hit by somebody, happened to a really good friend of mine the other day, not in here in the area, but he was him and his wife were driving and they were rear-ended by somebody. The person immediately got out of the car and said, hey, I do not have insurance, don't have insurance at all. And they didn't realize that until obviously they got hit. And so uninsured motorist is the other aspect. You want to make sure that you've got enough coverage to cover you, your wife, your family, and also your vehicle if somebody hits you that doesn't have enough coverage. Uninsured motorist property damage has a $250 deductible, and what that covers is damage to your vehicle if somebody hits you that does not have insurance or does not have enough. It's similar to full coverage, but it's not the same. So you want to make sure that you have enough coverage to cover you in the event of an accident.
Now, does it ever happen, and I'm sure it does, that let's say somebody comes in, and I'm not saying everybody's rolling the dough, I mean, you come in and you go, look, I got to have car insurance.
Correct.
State requires it. I want the highest deductible I can get. I want the least amount of insurance I can get because I need a card to get a license tag.
Correct.
And then when they get into an accident and something happens, then they come back and go, hey, why didn't you tell me about these things? I mean, now I'm out, $100,000, $200,000 because I don't have enough insurance. This is when people need to really sit down, and before they walk in and say, I want the minimum, I just want to get a tag, that's when they really sit down and talk to you and see what is the real deal is going on.
Oh, exactly. And that's where documentation from an insurance agent comes up. One of the things that Ann and Lynette preach to me all the time, and they're very, very good at it, is making sure that you document situations like that. Because, yes, it has happened in the past where, as agents, it's our job to educate. It's our job to inform the consumer because this is what we do every day. It's not what they do. So it's our job to educate them and go through, this is what the coverages are. This is what's available to you. At the end of the day, the consumer is the consumer. They can choose whatever they want. They have to have the minimum. But anything above that is on them. So it's our job to inform them this is what your options are, this is what you can go with. If they choose to say, you know what, give me 30, 60, 25, and give me $1,000 deductibles, as long as we document that, hey, we offered, we explained, we showed you what the options were, you decline that. Matter of fact, in most, if not all applications, there are other options, things like medical pay, personal injury protection, things like that. If they decide to decline that, there's actually a signature required on the application that says that you decline that, so you don't have that issue going forward to say, hey, you never told me about that. As long as you have it documented that these were the options, this is what we went over, you decline coverage for this area or for that area, it's gonna alleviate any kind of confusion going down the road.
So, folks, the long story short here is what you need to do is before you just walk in and say, I need to get an insurance card so I can get a license tag, sit down, spend some time talking to these folks. Let them explain to you what you're getting yourself into. So that way you might pay a little bit more for your insurance now, but it's going to save you a ton of money later on in case of an accident.
Exactly. It's the old theory of you can pay now or you can pay later. Everything is insurable, folks. It's just a matter of, are you going to write the check or is the insurance company going to write the check?
So talk to them about that. Joe, if folks need to get a hold of you and you guys over at Bryan Insurance, how's the easiest way to do that?
549-2525, Bryan with a Y, BRYANINS.com, or come on up to the second floor of the Sierra Bank building. We'll get you taken care of.
All right, there you go. That is Joe, the Bryant Insurance guy, bringing it this morning. And, folks, I tell you, before you make your insurance choices, give them a call, 549-2525. All right, we're going to get things kicked off with Bob Seger, CCR. We got sports coming up, so stick around.